Okay, thank you very much. So our purpose of gathering together, like I said, the assignment for us based on pastor's response, I would say, Pastor Itra's response, is to develop an organizational strategic framework for African Leadership Group. I want to clarify that this is not a strategic plan. It is a framework. And so what the framework basically does is that it's a deliberate decision-making process of appointed people that defines where the organization is going. It sets the direction of the organization through a common understanding of the mission, the vision, the goals and objectives, and our core values. In addition, it talks about how we're going to implement this through very defined communication strategy and also alignment with other necessary institutional standards that are required or relevant to the organization. And if you look at us as an organization, African Leadership Group as an organization, one of the questions I posted, about 9 questions, which we'll be discussing, is that what type of organization are we? It's very important. But before I go on further, I want to read to us certain things that we all are known, and that's to ask the question, why ALG? Why ALG? There's a document written in 2020, just a minute, and just as background and context, and it's titled Africa in 50 Years' Time, The Road Towards Inclusive Growth. It was developed by African Development Bank in 2011, and through a conference which they had in Tunis, in Tunisia. And I'll just read a part of the introduction just to ensure that we are all on the same platform, and as we transform this and submit this organizational strategic framework, everybody understands the context and the background for which African Leadership Group is being organized or is being formed or established, so that there's no ambiguity on, oh, I thought this is what we're supposed to be. But so the essence of our introduction is kind of, like I said, moving to the next line, background, context, and trends, is for us to articulate certain bullet points or paragraphs that actually reflects why we're doing what we're doing, why the organization is existing. So let me read from this, and I'll share the document on the platform, but let me just read the introduction part, which an extra from the introduction. It says, since the advent of independence for most African countries, the African continent has struggled with a seemingly endless array of development challenges, from civil war and political instability to epidemic disease, chronic food insecurity, and pervasive poverty. However, in recent years, Africa has experienced an economic resurgence. The emerging economies, particularly, and it's talking about BRICS, Brazil, India, South Africa, and China, have recognized Africa's potential as an investment destination and a source of natural resources. Over the past decade, despite the successive global food and financial crisis, Africa has been growing at an unprecedented rate. This was written in 2011, so that's almost about 11 years ago, but there's still some things that are applicable. Though it will take decades of growth to make major inroads into Africa's poverty, there's now a growing optimism about Africa's potential. And I want to stop there, and to the last statement there actually reflects one of the reasons why everyone, not just us, but there are other organizations are rising up that to say that there is a great potential in Africa. Now I go to, when you hear our name, African Leadership Group, you would ask the middle word there, leadership. And I would go to a quote of what Nelson Mandela said. He said, Africa has long suffered from a shortage of effective leaders. Poor leadership has cost the continent immensely over the past few decades, creating major problems in the political and economic spheres. And this is as good as when he said it in 2006, when he made this statement. And so when you look at it, our goal as ALG is, I believe, and I'm going to throw the platform open, is that the compelling case for ALG is on the basis that Africa has long suffered from a shortage of effective leaders. We don't lack leaders, but we have a shortage of effective leaders. And poor leadership or ineffective leadership cost the continent immensely. And it's a major problem in political and economic spheres. The last quote I'll read, or just, well, yeah, two more quotes. The one I read is from Kashni Totaram. She's an Indian, but who has worked almost over 30 years in Africa. And she runs an asset management company out of South Africa. And she said, a culture of corruption and patronage is truly ripping Africa apart. Politics do matter because they materially affect and shape the trajectory of business and the economy, changing investment opportunities, but also increasing risk and uncertainty for people to live in. So we'll see that we have a compelling case by which this organization must exist and achieve certain objectives and goals. Lastly, Peter F. Drucker, before he passed away, talked about re-engineering Africa into a major economic power force around the world is a must, and that's why we are gathered together. I believe that's the heart of Pastor Itua, re-engineering Africa into a major economic power force around the world. But just like Krishna said, politics matter. You cannot talk about being an economic power force if you don't have a stable political environment. And so we want to be clear to us. And I know most times because of our faith, Christians will say, oh, we don't want to get into politics. So for all of us who are at the front line of this organization, we must be ready to take a step forward and cancel that myth that we're not in politics. We're actually, politics matters. And because it does matter for economic and livelihood, we have a mission, a call of duty, let me put it that way, to be part of whatever will bring a change that will re-engineer Africa into a major economic power force. And lastly, St. Peter Drucker says, where there is no challenge and no change, there's no accountability. So we're all being called to challenge the status quo, because where there's no challenge, there can be no change, and where there's no change, there can be no accountability. I will stop there as background for introduction. Any comments, inputs to, why we do exist? What are we trying to solve? What are we trying to address?
I think the case is well stated for the need for the strategic framework, and thank you, sir, for doing that. And so it's all very clear what you've summarized as the intro. But I'm also quite keen to understand, as you pointed out, how we ensure that our geographic coverage is what our name suggests, that it's the entire continent. And whether that is by, and again, maybe this comes to policy, whether that is by acquiring membership over a wider spread, or that is by articulating the vision to cover the entire continent. I'd love to hear your views on that as well.
Okay. Okay, next, any sisters on the platform? Sister Ivy, and comments?
I think it was well summarized, the need for something to happen, a re-engineering to happen to Africa, because it's obvious that Africa has suffered a lot because of the leadership challenges across all of Africa, and it's not just Nigeria. I mean, we've seen all kinds of leadership in the different African countries. And I think the purpose of this group should be to challenge, which was one of the things you spoke to challenge the status quo and to see how we can make a difference, to see how we can change the trajectory and make Africa what it should be. You started by saying there are lots of potentials. That's not a myth. That's the reality, that we have a lot that we can offer the world. And we're just like operating, at our barest minimum. And I think we need to do something to be able to operate at our full potential. So I think the objective or the mission and the vision of the group is to re-engineer, change people's mindset, bridge the gap, and ensure that we change things and make the African nation a better story than what it is today.
Thank you so much. You hit 3 points there. I like the last phrase there, a better story. Because, what we're doing when we submit our reports is to be able to capture our minds, which, of course, has, been the policy and strategic committee, then offer a framework to people. You talked about, yes, we want to make Africa a better story. This is how vision is born. It's born out of what you just said. Brother IB asked about the question, how we ensure that our geographical coverage and our mission, how do we ensure that it reflects or they are interwoven together? You talked about bridging the gap. So we all do realize that there is a gap, but the question I would ask is, what are the gaps? And I have some things. So we realize there's a gap in governance in African nations. We realize there's a gap in leadership, competencies, and effectiveness, just like Peter Drucker said. We realize there's a gap in the accountability, because he said just very clearly, where there is no challenge, no change, and where there's no change, no accountability. We realize that there is a gap in challenge. People have been too passive, and so there is no challenge. And that brings me to what Stephen Friedman said. He says, real change will depend on the will to fight. And the will to fight is not talking physically, is about standing up and speaking up and then following through on what we strongly believe. And my question is African Leadership Group ready for this? We are thinking through this, but as we present this to the body of the executive, are they ready for this? Is this something that they are ready for? And once they're ready for it, we will put the content in place. So we realize there are gaps in institutional leadership. One of the things, if you have been following what is happening, what has happened in different countries, even Ghana with their recent election, everybody's talking about Africa has institutions, but they are weak because we don't have institutional leaders. We have leaders who look at position rather than building institutions. So if we're going to make Africa great, we have to build institutions. And institutional building requires institutional standards. It requires institutional a framework of doing things. Not one person comes in, does it one way and another changes. So those gaps, then we have a gap in government performance in African countries. one of the things that I was privileged to be a review consultant for is what in the States there they call the Government Performance Act, GPA, which, you know, it's a law, and that each government agency must give a performance report, a quarterly performance report to the Congress, and then an annual performance report. And that performance report is tied to a strategic plan that has been developed and revised. So there are performance metrics. I haven't seen much in Nigeria. I was privileged to do the HIV/AIDS strategic planning when Dr. Shotime was NACA president. And one of the things I asked, the Ministry of Health does have a strategic plan, but what are the performance metrics that will hold each person at different level, to what has been planned or purpose? So there is a gap in government performance and accountability. And this is what I believe, and we believe, that ALG is aiming to address: the leadership challenge, the gaps that we have just talked about. And then above all, there is the gap of citizen empowerment to effect proper positive decision making. You know, citizens are passive. We just take whatever they give us. But I can hear, and I'm sure some of you have been on the ALG platform, and you've heard that people are getting excited to talk. So citizens empowerment, citizens education, there is a gap there. And then citizens mobilization to effect changes in decision making, not just in political elections, but changes in policy as we deem necessary. Any other thoughts before we round up on context?
I think there's also a gap between the vision and the implementation. So,
okay.
For example, we had this Vision 2020. I can't remember which of the presidents that, you know, spoke about, oh, in 2020 we'll be doing this and we'll be doing that. So sometimes the vision is there, but the implementation, there is that gap between the vision and the implementation.
Thank you. Thank you for bringing that up. Actually, I think he's passed away now. My former boss, Gamaliel Onosode, was the leader of, the facilitating leader or chairman of the Vision 2020, and nobody talks about it anymore now. Of course, 2020 has passed. Nothing has been done to revise it. So that's, so pretty well said as far as going on our outline. Like I said, any other thoughts, please post as far as on background context that is the foundation for the establishment of the African Leadership Group. To Brother Ibrahim's question on geographical coverage, by our name, it does mean that indeed we're looking at the continent. And then we'll go. But let me also go to end our introduction. One of the things in the source document that we have passed around, it says the African Leadership Group is born out of a collective passion for good governance, accountability, equitable and judicious use of both human and natural resources, and created to address the leadership dilemma on the African continent. I think it summarizes the problems that we have addressed. The only thing is, if I had seen this document just explaining the summary of the solution, as which is the compelling case by way, I'll be wondering what exactly are the issues and the problems. So what I have seen that we will put in a revised document is that this summary of what is already provided summarizes well, but it needs to have a an explanation of the issues and the compelling gaps that we're addressing. Any comments on that? Because our goal is to restructure this initial 4-page document that has been developed into a more, effective strategic framework.
I think we're raising our hands, but I defer to Sister Funke, and then I can go after.
Thank you. I just want to add, are we looking at, I really am not sure, we're looking at the name and we're saying we're the African Leadership Group. I join the discourse every Thursday. I don't know how far reaching or how wide the membership, and I'm using that loosely, or people who connect and join. So it's good. We have lofty ideas and we have this big dream of making Africa a better place. But if the majority of us are in Nigeria or we're Nigerians, how do we make our intentions known, or how do we drive, what we're after, the change we're after? How do we make that a reality in other African countries if we don't have people from those countries who are, represented in the group and who have, who are like-minded, like us and all of that. So that's one thing I think is, I wouldn't say it's a challenge, but I don't know how we can work around that. Because I know that if, like the Bible says, two cannot work together unless they be agreed. So we can't, I don't know how we can change Africa on our own if we don't have other people who, because different countries have different challenges, and all of that. We know we're looking at leadership, but there are some mitigating factors, which may be peculiar to each country. So I don't know how we can carry everyone along and, to really reflect the name African Leadership Group.
Okay, thank you so much. Before Brother IB talks, I think you have captured it by your last thought, which is a question. How do we reflect? How do we reflect the name of the organization? Because the name, like we always say, a name is important. Name connotes a lot of, has a lot of implication. So as African Leadership Group, how do we reflect and I think it ties to what Brother IB has said, how do we ensure that our geographical coverage is well represented in the strategic framework, which is the vision, the mission? So thanks for bringing that up. The point that different countries have different challenges, yes, contextual, but the core, by the name of the organization is leadership. So it is an 80-20%, framework. So what it connotes, what I believe it connotes, and Pastor Itwa can clarify, or the board when we present to them, is that 80% of the cost of this organization will be centered on leadership. The other 20% is, things that are related or relevant to leadership. But the major goal, and that's why I brought up what Nelson Mandela has said, that there is no shortage of leaders in Africa, but there's a shortage of effective leaders. And poor and effective leadership is costing us a lot, both economically and in terms of lives, in terms of livelihoods in the continent. Thank you so much. Over to you, Brother IB.
Thank you, sir. And I think I'm taking on from what Sister IB has said. And I appreciate your response. But I also think the one of the elements that may be important here, in terms of leadership, membership, I think so far the membership has evolved organically around Pastor Itwa. So all of his circles, his networks, going to the second degree and so on. But I think maybe to capture greater membership that reflects the continent, might need to have might need to engage in some sort of a targeted drive towards expanding our course. However, what I wanted to also ask you, Pastor Tayo, if we're going to capture this in the strategic framework, is Because when you speak, just going back to Vision 2020, I wonder what the role, what the advantage would be, even though I ask it as a question, I propose an answer, of creating ownership by building consensus and by engaging in consultations. Because some of the easiest way to drive a common vision is to exactly do to consult, to engage, to seek to develop interest so that people actually feel an ownership of the process. So just in short, what I'm asking is, how do we reflect that? If we're agreed that it's important, how do we reflect that in the framework? For each of the committees,
Okay.
whatever they're doing, and whatever the management of the group is doing, how do you ensure that you're not walking alone, but you're taking people with you?
Okay, thank you for the comment. I know Sister Jumi is back. I hope you are in flow with us. We're still on just looking at introduction, background, context, 1 and 2, background, context, and trends of the basis of forming African Leadership Group. What problems are we addressing? What issues? And if you still have comments, we would. I would just tell you most of the comments have centered around on the gaps in government performance, accountability, leadership, and our passion is to bridge the gap and build a better story for Africa, re-engineering people's mindsets in order that we may become or continue to be the major economic power force, the potential that the continent has. I did reference some quotes, which, from the recording you'll see about the culture of corruption and patronage, which is patronage being, like you will rightly hear, this is my own, it's my turn, it's truly ripping Africa apart. And then, of course, politics matter. So we cannot exclude ourselves maybe by our faith or relationship or religion from politics. Politics does matter in a nation building and, of course, for the livelihood and economic development of any society. So that's where we are. Responding back to, and then I'll let you take the floor for a minute or two, Sister Funke, on your heartbeat as far as what is the heartbeat of ALG and what is it trying to address as from your own viewpoint. I think responding to Brother Ibrahim's comments, what I envision is that the document we're developing is going to focus on Africa because the name it says African Leadership Group. Now, you're right, the implementation, anyone who reads this document will use it, or we would expect the executive board to use it as a catalyst document for mobilizing other leaders and the audiences in other countries in Africa. What usually happens, and I'll go because what I envisage is that this is more of a movement. So what usually happens is that a movement starts with a crop of people and they may be just the same grouping, age and things, but as time goes on, once you have a strategic framework, you start to use it as your communication tool to mobilize others. To say, look, this vision has been crafted. It's African Leadership Group, whatever the vision and mission that has been agreed upon. The executive board has been formed, but it's now opening up to have representation. And it may be a step by step. Maybe we will say in the next year, there should be focus on strategic communications and having the same kind of dialogues that have been had on the Thursday movement and make it more regional. And so those will be part of the issues that we'll be looking at when we talk about strategic focus areas, strategic communication, and then strategic stakeholders, affiliates, and collaboration. So just to respond to you, Brother IB, I think we're still in the formation stage, and it's good to make it known once we start developing the tenets of this document that this organization is not limited to Nigeria. That is why one of the questions I ask is, what type of organization are we? We are a regional organization. That has to come out in its description. We are non-partisan, we are non-governmental, we are non-profit. So when people hear it, then it's clear because we have strategically communicated to everyone. I would stop there. Over to you, Sister Jumi, and take the floor on your comments and input.
I don't know that I have one right now because I just jumped in. So let me keep listening and then catch up, if you don't mind, sir.
That's fine. That's fine. That's fine. All right. Okay. Did I see another person's hand up, or is just somebody putting their hand?
It's me again. Yeah.
Okay. Go ahead.
Yeah. I understand that the name says African Leadership Group. But, I'm just thinking about how organizations work. And I think we really need to define, in an organization, you look at your target market. You look at where you want to play and where you don't want to play. You don't start an organization and say, I'm going to be selling to the whole world, because it's going to be problematic, because you don't even know your own terrain before jumping out into the world. So I would, and I've seen things like African Leadership Group, Nigerian Leadership Series, something like that. I think we have to start at home first. We have to, because even on the Thursday calls, the Nigerian problems are enormous, that we can't be dabbling into Africa, in my own eyes, as yet. There's so much that we need to do to use Nigeria as a case study to be modeled to Africa. They say charity begins at home. We need to be seen to be doing something right in Nigeria before we can replicate or pass that on to other African nations. We can't say we're just going to be operating across Africa. I think, in my eyes, that is really, really, sorry? Yeah, I think, I don't know. I think it's quite something. I think we really need to define our target market, what we want to do, where we want to play, or where we want to start from, rather than saying, oh, Africa. Yes, it's a good dream, but I think we really need to be realistic and prioritize.
So if I can ask clarification since I came in. So from what I'm hearing from Pastor Tayo, is this is describing the vision of ALG. It's not, so making it comprehensive is the framework that the organization is going to grow into. It's not growing. It's grow into. So it's projection. We're not planning for now, it's planning for the future. Nigerian Leadership Series is a building block of ALG. So we're starting with that, and the concentration will be on ALG, on NLS for now. But there's still this global umbrella or this shoe that we are going to fit into at some point, and we begin to build the next block after we've done the NLS. Then it could be the GLS, Ghana Leadership Series. But we have this umbrella ALG, which is the vision to target Africa while taking one country at a time.
Okay.
All right. Thank you so thank you so much.
That's the clarification that is required.
Yes, let me mark that. Exactly. Yes. Just merging the two thoughts. Thank you for bringing that up. Our job, and I just want to, let me just read this. When you develop a vision, basically the vision is a futuristic view regarding the ideal state. And the ideal state is that someone has been born in his or her heart with a collection of people and say, Africa lacks effective leaders. and we want to be a solution to this. And we're not, you'll see my questions, we're not the only organization. There's actually another organization called the African Leadership Academy, set up by a Ghanaian. In their first 3 years, they were all Ghanaians. Now they're about 8 years old now. And their goal is to establish leadership academies in different countries in Africa. Now they have diversified their board, but at their conception stage, it was just basically Ghanaians who felt the passion. They set up a hub and then they started adding. And so going by what Sister Jumoke said, yes, so we want to make it clear, and that's important when the executive body sees it. Yes, we are African Leadership Group, but we're starting with Nigerian Leadership Series. Then next, and our strategic framework will say, maybe in the next year or two, then we go to GLS, Ghana Leadership Series, Kenya Leadership Series, and then it grows on like that. So thanks for clarifying that. Again, a vision is a futuristic view regarding an ideal state that the organization aspires to create or to achieve in a sustainable long term. So thanks for bringing that up. Okay, I see another hand up. Whose hand is that? Whose hand do we have up?
I think it was a thumbs up, but anyway, maybe
It
not.
was
a thumbs up. I'm not. Well, okay. We start using this emoji, or what do you call it, icons, and okay. Thank you so much. So that's our goal, and we would. It's a laudable task for us what we're doing, but I hope by God's grace we would be able to achieve all that is required. All right. So we'll move on. So we're quite clear about the background and the context. And now, one of the questions I would ask, and I think I did reflect on that, who are we? We're African Leadership Group, but who are we as an organization? I gave some, thought streams. We're non-partisan, we're non-profit, non-governmental. Are we a citizen-driven organization? And I'm throwing this out so that, because we all want to speak the same language when we define our identity, who are we? So we want to deal with that before we move on to start discussing mission, vision, statement. So if you are approached, Brother IB, Sister IB, Sister Jumoke, and somebody asks, who is ALG? How would you describe ALG in its from an organizational point of identity? No wrong answers. All answers are right. Just your thoughts of starting with African Leadership Group is that, and we can look at what you have in mind.
I would say a group of concerned citizens, or what a group of concerned Africans. So it is citizen driven, I would say.
Okay, thanks for that. A group of concerned citizens, okay. A group of concerned African citizens, okay. So basically that feature is that we're a citizen-driven organization. And that's important. There are two aspects we always look at, which, and then other aspects integrate. We must be purpose-driven, and then we must be mission-driven. So we would have the purpose now, as you all know, in the trend of sustainable development, is for the good of the society. The mission is our mission that is related to the path that we are walking towards to reach our vision. Now, who we are by identity, it describes the different attributes that makes us distinct from an organization point. We're non-profit, we're non-partisan, we're non-governmental, and we're citizen-driven. So it makes people clear that nobody owns this organization. Citizens drive it. So any citizen of any of the nation can have an issue and concern. An ALG can then lend itself to look at it and see whether that concern aligns with our mission and it contributes to our vision. So that's any other thoughts? So thanks, Sister Jumi. So we add on to that. African Leadership Group is a non-profit, non-partisan, non-governmental, citizen-driven organization. And we can then put some other words. Okay, so still on identity, who we are. Any other thoughts?
Yes, I had my hand raised. So,
Okay.
But thinking about that, I was just looking at what are the common features of the members. So, what do we have in common? And I'm thinking in terms of both values and vision. And what I'm wondering is, can we identify a common value? And can we then identify as well a common vision that we can add to being a citizen-driven organization? The first word that came to my mind was ideology, but oftentimes ideology is misunderstood in terms only of political ideology. But the ideology that I conceptualize is, in its most simple form, what's the idea that we propose as a group? And I think we've identified that to be creating value-driven African leadership for the future, much like what you quoted about Mandela. So my question really is boiled down to just, what are those common values we have, and how can we put that in that self-description of who we are? And if we could also capture our vision in that same self-description. And maybe I don't have the answer, but
that's why we're all putting heads together. But let me kind of interject. You've added another component. We're non-profit, we're non-partisan, we're non-governmental, citizen-driven, leadership, value-driven leadership organization. Now, what are those values that drive us? Because you were asking, so we don't use the word ideology, which of course has different connotations, but we already know as identity. So when we're non-profit, I think another point that, and you mentioned it as an attribute of our commonality, is that we're also non-religious, because we have to be careful. If you look at the platform, I mean, the pastor has brought in of the people of different faiths. All we're about, the core is that we're a value-driven leadership organization that ends, and leadership has no bias for age, has no bias for ethnicity or color or position, so that must come out. And when we come to define our strategic communications guide, is that anytime anybody speaks about this organization, who represents this organization, you must have respect for others. You must have respect for the culture. You must have respect for the faith of the person, so that we are not seen as a Christian organization. It does not matter. We may have the movement having more Christians in it. That's not the issue. But our identity is that this is who we are. And so that's really important. So we have these attributes. We're non-governmental. We're not government. We're non-partisan. We don't belong to any party or be driven. We're citizen-driven. We're non-religious organization. I think that has to be clear. And then we are value-driven leadership organization, which now captures the essence of the organization. Any other thoughts?
Sister Funke has her hand up.
Okay, thanks. Okay, go ahead. Thanks for helping me to check that. Okay, Staff Funke, please go ahead.
Thank you. I think everyone, and I mean everyone, because everyone gives an hour of their time, 2 hours of their time every Thursday, for this purpose and for this dream. And I think it's because everyone is passionate, to get Africa back to where it belongs in the Committee of Nations. We know that Africa is great. And, you know, if we start with Nigeria, like we've talked about, if we start from home, even in the UK here, and I know that's all over, there is nowhere in the world that you won't find a Nigerian, and not just a Nigerian, doing very well, you know, in the NHS, in top positions, you know. So, but we've just been unfortunate because of the, like Pastor Tayo said, I wrote it down, you know, there's been a shortage of effective leadership. It's not that we don't have people who are leaders, who can be leaders, but effective leadership, that has been the bane of Africa. So I think we're passionate, as I think the group, we're passionate to get Africa back to where it belongs, restore Africa to its place in the Committee of Nations. So once we are able to tackle the main problem that African countries have, which is poor leadership. Our leaders are selfish. We don't have altruistic leaders. And, you know, people think about themselves, but not the bigger picture. People think they're bigger than the nations that they're from. So if we're able to get that right, then half of the problem will be solved. So I think we're passionate to get Africa back to where it rightly belongs.
Okay, thank you so much. Well said. And again, we're, you know, putting thoughts and streams together. So we're still on identity. But let me read a statement, what I put together of what, if somebody had asked me, because like I said, it's a thought stream that has been in me also, being passionate about Africa and of Nigeria. And so I wrote a statement, and this is what I always do in my facilitation and ask people, you start with the words, what do you envision, which is the question, and then you say, I envision. So let me read what I envision, and I would encourage each one of us to write a paragraph in that manner, because what we have said when we, you know, extract out these minutes is that it actually speaks what is the core of this organization. I envision Africa as a continent of interrelated nations where citizens and leaders are empowered to exist in productive, peaceful, and prosperous society that permits each voice to be heard, to fulfill political, social, economic requirements of present time and future needs. That's what I envision. And if you see from all what we have there said, that each voice must be heard to fulfill both political, social, and economic needs of the present situation and the future, and of the future. So I leave that to 1 minute thought on what do you envision? How would you express what you envision of a continent of Africa? And then we can break this down into, I envision Nigeria as a nation of interrelated groups where citizens and leaders. I envision Ghana as a nation, because once we envision Africa, each nation becomes, just draws from, like we said, the root of the tree becomes firm where the fruit, the branches shoot out. So it's still the same tree. So I would like to hear your envision statements.
I don't know how we can describe this, you know, in terms of like, because really it's that self-actualization as a continent where we realize and use our skills, where we utilize our skills to realize our full potential. That's really what we're driving towards as a continent, right? Not to be this disjointed group of people that can't even self-govern. And so how I describe that, I've been thinking, and I can't come up with like a phrase that really captures that self-actualization of us as a people.
Thank you so much. I would help you out here. So if I hear you right, and you can now add on to it, your envisioning statement says, I envision a continent where people utilize their skills and gifts to achieve the highest potential of development of the continent.
And I would add, manage the resources.
And manage the, okay, that's fine.
In there
so
somewhere
we can,
for the the benefits.
Okay,
yeah.
All right, fine. So that will be added to it. That's fine. So just like I said, for others, you can pour out your thoughts and I'll try to craft your envision statement. All right. Okay, next on the floor.
I'm happy to go next if that's okay. And my I'm sorry, I just lost my thought. But my understanding or sort of the direction that I will go is to envision a country where we appreciate our diversity and we're able to use it as a strength. I think one of the greatest challenges of Nigeria is simply its diversity. And when we talk about what ALG is, and we're talking about a non-religious, I would say a multi-religious, or even a secular grouping, that points to some of the problem, is that we deal with multiple diversities, and so far that's been a big challenge. When we look at the leadership quest, when we look at political contests, that's always something that's challenging our nation. So in other words, my envision statement would capture that to the extent that we have a self-awareness of the range of diversity in Nigeria, and yet we're able to use that as even a strong basis for progress.
Okay.
Sorry, I'm not
Thank you
very
so
articulate
much.
with that.
No, that's fine. Like I said, we're just, one good thing, like I said, different gifts. I do this a lot, and so I can read your envision statement like this, and you can add on to it once we listen to this recording. I envision a continent where diversity is embraced and celebrated to foster leadership, societal, and economic development progress. So thank you very much for giving us the thought stream. So that's, and then you can see how, by the time we finish and we put these envisioning statements into a kind of net, it actually forms the bedrock of the vision statement being clear. Because just from what we got, it says, making Africa great again. Somebody will say, okay, once upon a time, Africa was great. So what does great mean? And that's what we're trying to say now. Great means that we envision a continent where diversity is embraced and celebrated to foster leadership, political, social, and economic development for the progress of the continent. So it's not for the benefit of anyone, but for the progress of the continent. So whatever we are doing at ALG, we must embrace diversity, we must celebrate it, and then it must add on, it must foster, not that it's an island on its own. So thanks so much, Brother IB. That's so next.
Can we add progress and can we add advancement progress? I like using those two things together, progress and advancement.
Yes. All right, that's fine. Yes, progress and advancement. Yes. Next.
I think for
Sister
me,
Ivy. Okay, go ahead.
yeah, and I don't know how to describe this,
Just say
but it'll be
it doesn't matter.
it'll be something around tapping into the resources that we have in Africa. We have so much. We have the people, we have the natural resources, we have the all kinds of resources, but we're not making use of the things that we have in Africa. So I would like to see an Africa or a group of people that are investing or that are pushing the continent to utilize and to make use of the resources that the
Okay.
continent, yeah, something around that.
Okay, thank you so much. I mean, you were all hitting the point. So you envision a continent where natural and human resources are properly utilized to advance or to foster and advance progress of the continent, when we can then define. But your point is that, look, I'm looking at us. We have natural and human resources, but they are not properly utilized. You hit a word there, utilization. They are lying dormant, or they are being misused. And so you envision a continent where natural and human resources are properly utilized to foster progress and advancement of the continent. Thank you. Okay, next, who takes the floor? Mr. Funke.
Ibi stole my note.
All right, we'll forgive her.
I didn't put it down as a sentence. I just said abundant resources in bracket, human and natural, for the benefit of the people and the continent.
Okay, well, thank you. You used the proper for the benefit of the people and the continent. So thank you so much. Thank you all so much. I think this has been faster than I thought, and it shows that our hearts are beaming together because, like I said, in organizational strategic framework development, it's important that the core team, it's just like forming a football or an athletic team, the coach brings them together, ask each member in the team, what do you envision this team to be? And you hear different winning definitions, because a team is put together by the owner and has appointed a coach to, coordinate that team to achieve one goal, and that's to win. But winning can be expressed in different terms, and so somebody says, I just had, because I'm a sports person, athlete too, and one of our sons is a basketball coach. The last NBA was won by Golden State Warriors, and they were asking someone, he said, we are not the most talented, but we are the most together. And that really struck a strike, that we don't need to have the most talents, but we need to be most together. Because, and then, our biblical foundation says there's more blessings in unity. When we are most together, and that's what I think Brother Ibi was saying about a continent where diversity is embraced, celebrated, or actually even the word acknowledge, that we acknowledge that we are diverse. We're not trying to be one, everybody putting his head or looking like the same. We acknowledge, we embrace, and we celebrate diversity. That may be expressed in part of our guiding principles. You use the word, which is, of course, more related to our faith, abundant. You envision a continent where its abundant resources, both natural and human resources, are properly utilized for the benefit of the people and the whole continent. So that's good. Thank you so much, I think the train is moving well. Any further thoughts, anything left behind in the envisioning statement? Is there anything left in your heart that you may want to? Let me just throw this today. I think I had passed this through, and I always filter it through young people because I have a lot of them around me. And one of the things when I read my envisioning statement, it said, you don't have anything about digital or technology. And it's true because, I mean, we're talking of statistics record that almost 48% of African population are between ages 13 and 30. So that tells us that when whatever we envision for the continent must have a component of what is core to them. And really, technology is core to them. So we're going to see how to weave that in some of our envisioning statement. We envision a continent that is digitally whatever the word is a must, and not just literacy, but mastery. I think will make Africa great. We can see what is happening in Asia with young, we can see what is entrepreneurs, and we're having them develop in Africa also. Another thing, another young, one of my young proteges said is, we don't have anything talking about culture. So, see, so when we look at our envisioning statements, but I think diversity will cover that, you know, which is what Brother Ibrahim mentioned. So acknowledging, embracing, and celebrating diversity to foster both leadership, advancement of progress and of the continent.
Brother Pam has his hand up, sir.
Okay, go ahead, brother.
Well, I'm sorry to interrupt you.
No, you're fine.
Oh, all right, thanks. I was just thinking about the just a little spin on the question of resources, which may also tie into this, because I heard you talk about sustainable growth or sustainable development in Africa. And I think two of the greatest challenges that Africa faces now is climate change and conflict. And I think in order to have a strong vision for Africa, you have to address both the causes of climate change and conflict. And I think introducing an element that talks about, and I know we've talked about resources here, but and please guide me if I'm off track, but an element that talks about the protection of our common heritage, both in, I mean, you talked about customs just now, both in values and customs and in our, I don't know, our God-given environment or our God-given land, you know. So the idea is not well formed in my head, but I just think, you know, something that addresses the need to live harmoniously within the environment that God has given to us.
Okay, thank you. I think, no, that's fine. We're picking the, you know, you mentioned something, we're picking the attributes of the African continent identity. We've talked about natural resources, human resources, diversity. Now you brought in a word, free of conflict. We envision a continent that is free of conflict or that is peaceful. You know, I read my envisioning statement that is peaceful, productive, and prosperous. You know, so we're weaving those attributes of, it's just like when we talk about our God also, God has attributes. And part of the attributes of God is peace. It's joy. I mean, we talk about the fruit of the Spirit. So we're actually crafting out what we can consider, what are the attributes of a continent that we envision. And actually, it could be a discussion on the NLS Thursday platform to just hear what people say. You know, yes, we know what the problems are, but what do you envision? What do you see? I mean, it's a good question you will see all throughout the Bible. What do you see? Because the way you see determines the way you act, determines what you pursue, and things like that. So, and that's the power of vision. That's how we then come to create a vision statement that is able to craft in a succinct manner what we are all envisioning. So thank you for bringing that up. Climate change and conflict. And the word, I think, the overarching word that brings in climate change is environmental sustainability, which of course, it's the main driving point. So we envision a continent which is environmentally sustainable, free of conflict, utilizes its natural and human resources to foster progress and advancement for the benefit of the people and the continent. I mean, you can see how robust those words are, but then it communicates the heart of the continent. Thank you. Any other thoughts?
I'm sorry, I'm going to
Also,
grab a coffee, so please forgive me.
I was going to say, yeah, I was going to say we need a bathroom break,
break.
and I was going to grab a drink too. So you just hit the right point at the right moment. Yeah, we can take a 2-3 minute, grab your coffee, your water. I'm not a coffee person, but I'm a water person. I used to be a coffee person, but I don't know. I went to Afghanistan and then went for green tea because that's all they drink there. So,
of course.
Yeah.
Of course.
So
Okay.
I lost my coffee
5 minutes.
taste and
5 minutes bio break.
yeah, about 3 minutes. Yeah, 3
5?
minutes.
3?
Okay, 5. No, 5 is okay since you said 5. Okay.
Okay.
All right. Thank you. Let's break for 5 minutes. Okay. How much time do you have left, Sister Ajumi?
I haven't had lunch, but no, I'm done for the day actually. Fridays are kind of light for me.
All right. Okay. Good, good, good. Okay. Okay.
I wrote some things on the chat as well. I mean, I
Okay.
don't know if it makes any sense, but as I think, I just put it on the chat when I can't talk. So maybe we can print it, and as we read the document, we can just maybe begin to put some of this in there to build it up more.
Okay. I saw, yeah.
At some point, we have to let Mr. Pam go and get some sleep.
Yes, I know. No, we'll round up. I mean, this has been good. Like I said, I think we are roughly getting close to 2 hours, so we should be. Let me just speak some of the things you've written.
Oh, please don't worry about me. I appreciate, but yeah, I was prepared for this anyway. So my Saturday was a bit slow.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Sister Jumoke.
All right, is everybody back? Okay. All right. now that we have, okay, somebody, was it Sister Funke that, or Sister Ibu that had something to say before we went on break? Are we all back?
You're on mute, EP.
Yeah,
Sorry.
I was asking that, did you have something to say before we went on break?
Yes, I did. I said I wanted to say something around being data-driven to enable possibility to unlock possibilities and efficiencies rather than just reacting, having things backed up by data to help us to identify gaps and for inefficiencies and areas that we need to focus on. I don't know how to put that into the mix, but
okay. All right, of the envisioning statements. Okay. Yeah, you mentioned a phrase, 2 words, unlock possibilities. We'll see how that match together. The other attribute, I think we've identified key attributes of our identity, which is what we're doing. Who are we? And who are we is based on who we envision ourselves to be. Just like we always say, we look at ourselves as God sees us. So we as Africans are looking at the continent and how do we see the continent? So it's actually beyond us because all the things we envision, we outlive any life. And it's actually very futuristic. And so it is not something that would happen overnight. And that's the power of the vision statement, is that it gives you a futuristic view of an ideal state or conditions, and then we can walk through. I think what you mentioned about data-driven in order to enhance or foster efficiencies, we can address that. Even some of these things will translate into objectives, core objectives, that we would, we have outcome objectives, impact objectives, and process objectives. And under process objectives, we'll talk about the maximization, utilization and maximization of technology to build a data-driven performance environment. It must be data-driven. We cannot talk performance without metrics. You must have a measure of what are we measuring government performance on. Just like the whole, I was just looking at my notes, and one of the things that I saw in my notes just surprises me. Just a minute, and I just yeah. And I was looking at all the indices by which a nation is measured with. We have the GDP, we have the Human Development Index, we have the Corruption Index, we have the Doing Business Index, we have the Sustainable Development Index, we have the Global Health Index. So when you look at all these indices, just to buttress your point, they are all based on data. And, and I think for us as an organization, a citizen-driven organization, the focusing on leadership is to hold our leaders at both national, state, and local level in every nation accountable to using these indices as, catalyst or for decision making. And that hasn't been. You hear the manifestos of those who are talking politically, very few of them refers to these indices. I mean, the corruption index, we're 156 out of 180 countries doing business. And so in the country, we're in the 100 quartile range. So when you look at it and say, what are you going to do for a nation or a continent or a nation in a continent? So those are key points. That will come up in our strategic objectives. And so now let's look at the vision that the source document has given us. And the vision says, making Africa great again. when you put this to what we call as a test, a barometer for an effective vision statement, this does not pass the mark. It actually, you know, and I shared it with other colleagues, it actually is rated almost about between 3 and 4 out of 10, 10 being the highest. Now, when you say making Africa great again, you know, you want to describe, like I said, you are saying once upon a time, Africa was great. So that means we reached a plateau and then we started declining. And we're saying, let's come back again. So I want your thoughts on what would you consider? Most of the things we have said in our visioning statement, I'm going to craft 2 or 3 or 4 best vision statements about, but I want you to talk about what do you consider great? When you say somebody is great or a place is great, oh, I visited Seoul and I'm coming to visit Brother Ibrahim, hopefully. You know, I visited Seoul in Korea and Seoul is great. Or visited Tokyo and somebody say, oh, Tokyo is great. What would you consider great when you talk about the vision, this vision statement? Or how would you rate this vision statement, making Africa great again? Thoughts so that we can...
I think making Africa great again lacks originality. I think that came from Trump, make America great again. And as you rightly said, I don't think Africa was ever great in that sense. So I don't think making America great cuts it for me. Yeah.
All right, thank you for that. That's a good point. Lacks originality. So again, brings us to, I mean, when you talk about our identity, what is it that from our visioning statements, what else can we consider that would enable somebody to know clearly what we're talking about? Okay, any other? Okay, let's move to others.
I have one. And just piggybacking on what Sister IB said. Are you Ibilola or Ibino?
Ibijoke.
Ibijoke, okay. Is working to realize Africa's potential. Or realizing Africa's potential. Actualizing Africa's potential. Something, actualizing. I think I like that word, actualizing Africa's potential.
Okay, that's pretty succinct and it's straight to the point. It's clear. Like I said, the vision statement must be clear, must be futuristic. It's something that, I mean, to attain it takes a process, takes a time frame, and there's just milestone upon my, and you hit the word. I mean, it's not a word that has been commonly used, but in, I think 3 or 4 decades ago, I mean, it was actually up to 2 decades ago, you talk about actualization. People talk about self-actualization, which is the Maslow hierarchy of needs, which means if you don't meet the basic needs, why talk about a higher order of, status in life? And it's the same thing. If we're not able to ensure livelihood within the continent, what's the essence of what kind of greatness can we be talking about? So actualizing Africa's potential, it's a good vision statement because it captures the identity, meaning that we have a potential, and the potential can be described in terms of its natural and human resources. We have a potential, we have leaders, we just don't have effective leaders. So actualizing Africa's potential, one would say, to do what? When you actualize a potential, is to fulfill a purpose or to fulfill certain desired, goals or objectives. So we would expand on that. Okay. Any other thoughts? on the vision making Africa great again. How would you based on our envisioning statement, how would you craft out a vision statement? Or what do you consider great?
I think I can't just put it in a thread or, but I'll just, the words that, the things that I would consider make a country great will be where the citizens are safe and there's a sense of security and there's an enabling environment for citizens to thrive, and thereby what you said, they can then actualize their purpose. There must be an environment that enables people to do that. And that environment must be safe and conducive. So I can't.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you so much. I think you also hit some key attributes of a vision statement here. If I join Sister Jumoke's zone, it says actualizing Africa's potential by creating an enabling environment for people to thrive. So you can see how that is, it embraces diversity, it talks, and then you mentioned a key point, citizen safety. You can't thrive in an unsafe environment, or you cannot thrive in an unsecured. So when we use the word thrive, it implies that, and you use the word environment, but our real destination is to actualize our potential. So actualizing Africa's potential by creating, and we have a framework or a guide we always use, WHO. You ask, what is it that we want to achieve? How are we going to achieve it? And what is the outcome when we achieve it? And I think if we put your two statements together, it will pray, what is it that we're trying to achieve? We're trying to actualize our potential. How are we to do that? We're creating an enabling environment for people to thrive. What is the outcome? People will thrive. When our destination is actualization of Africa's potential, it could be, and of course, individual countries' potential, and it's done through or by creating an enabling environment. Actually, we can put an enabling, safe environment for people to thrive. Then we're able to actualize. Thank you so much. Those are two very connected statements. Any other thoughts, Sister IB and Brother IB?
Yes, I do have a thought on the whole question of Africa's past greatness. And my proposition is that indeed Africa was great. And it was great in a number of ways, where if you consider the Nok culture that produced the first iron smelting, I can't remember in what century that was, which is located somewhere in central Nigeria. If you also consider the political system in the Oyo Empire, which was highly sophisticated, one of the best models of political leadership anywhere, with a cabinet, and a prime minister, and a president, with even the power of impeachment, which even recently Donald Trump was struggling with. And if you think about also the fact that we had an empire, the Songhai Empire, which was one of the richest empires ever. And in fact, Mansa Musa was probably richer than King Solomon. And of course, the Queen of Sheba in Ethiopia. I'm giving examples because I think these examples are not properly reflected when Africa is looked at globally. Shaka Zulu had a military in South Africa present-day South Africa, that defeated the British in battle because he had one of the most sophisticated military systems. So Africa's story is told by the white man in a way that diminishes our greatness. And in fact, if you look at the contributions of Africa to both the agricultural revolution, which really was a springboard for Western, the wealth in the global North, and the Industrial Revolution as well, I think Africa's contributions to the world are not properly acknowledged. But coming back to it, while I am not totally enamored with the term "Make Africa Great Again" because it has been corrupted recently, but I would think that something along those lines is not far-fetched at all. Africa needs to restore its leadership. I mean, the Kanem Borno Empire, for example, was a center of intellectual, albeit Islamic intellectual development. The first university in the world was in present-day Mali. So I think that on all counts, and not even counting the pyramids in Egypt, on all counts, Africa's greatness is evident, but it is mischaracterized now. And our continent has been impoverished by the rapaciousness of Western imperialism. So something along the lines of recapturing Africa's great heritage, I think, is very appropriate.
Okay, thank you so much. I think just hearing you, one of the words that we use in vision statement of vision development is very active verbs, you know, and you hit the word, you ended up with recapturing, which of course I would actually, I think what you're more or less highlighting is restoring Africa's leadership and greatness. It was there, it was not properly acknowledged, and these are, again, we should remember that what we're doing, what we're going to create is going to be an educational and communication tool as a strategic framework. It's not just saying the vision statement is this, but how did we arrive at this vision statement? What is it? What are the underlying tones of this vision statement? So when somebody here, make Africa great again, for the generation of our children, the Z generation, they never saw Africa great. All they had was the diseases, the poverty, the insecurity, the fights, the conflicts. That's all they've been hearing about Africa. Nobody has captured, you know, just what you mentioned, the intellectual, even in a place as Mali, and you can see what is happening in Mali now. So really, we're talking about restoring Africa's leadership and greatness. Now, how do we bring that to, okay, our potential, meaning that not only that we had this, but we still have the potential. So we're going to see how we can weave, there's a need. I think we may buy into the word great, implying restoration of our dignity, Africa's leadership and greatness, which is good. Because we need to start promoting, and then of course actually. So thanks for that. But how do we do it? The how H, creating an enabling safe environment for people to thrive. You know, so it's important. So there's no limitation, and that also ties to potential. But I'll see how to integrate that. But thank you for bringing about the Africa's contributions to the world that have not been properly acknowledged or have not been properly promoted in today's, in the 21st, 20th, and 21st century. Okay.
Can I add one more element, please? Just very briefly.
Yes, go ahead.
And that's about, when you talk about the how, I think part of it is about us telling our own story. Because so long as we are told who we are by the Western world or by Yes, I mean, unless we tell our own story, we're not reflecting who we are properly.
Okay, all right. Telling our own story to reflect our identity. Okay. Okay, good. Because don't forget, people are going to challenge our thought streams when we put it. So that's why I'm trying to draw it out from also that, I mean, we can be confident that what we are presenting, we have thought it through from one end to the other in terms of the depth, and then of course the breadth, and of course the future of what we envision as a continent. Okay, any other thoughts, Sister IB? Oh, okay, we started with, I think we have Sister Jumi, Sister Funke, and then Brother IB. So Sister IB and I. So any other thoughts? And if not, I'll just, I think I have I'd written some things down here. Okay, so we'll move forward. I know we're running into, okay, wow. It's already 2 hours actually. Okay, so we see that we need to recraft that statement, and I hope we're able to convince Pastor to look at it from a more strategic, futuristic, and of course the one that meets the standard for a vision statement that really reflects our identity. Yes, you have brought into our own understanding, which everyone should know as part of this document, that indeed Africa was great, or Africa has greatness, which has not been properly communicated. And so what we're doing now is restoring that greatness, but then we're moving it to a higher level, and we want to do it through creating an enabling environment. And that higher level is actualization of potential that has been dormant or not properly utilized. All right. I will end with the mission statement. Go ahead.
Reawakening the sleeping giant. A slogan.
Okay.
Somewhere, we'll put it somewhere.
Okay.
Reawakening the sleeping giant. Or maybe in this case, the comatose giant.
McKinsey consulting firm has used that. They have
they have, so it's not original?
Yeah, they have. Well, it's not. It's hard to find original things these days. Yeah, you know. But yeah, they have captured. McKinsey consulting firm is one of the biggest global concern. They have captured Africa as a sleeping giant. Actually, they also use the word lion. You know, in comparison with what is happening in Africa and what happened in China. And so you're right, we are awakening the sleeping giant. Okay, so there is a giant, and that talks again that we have a greatness, and it needs to be reawakened. It needs to be restored, and we need to actualize the potential for greatness. So I'll note that down, reawakening the sleeping giant. Okay, that it's pretty good. So,
if I may just also make a suggestion, I don't know if you guys are going to send this to Pastor to review, but I think maybe yourself or Mr. Pam should walk him through the thought process, because it's one thing to discuss something, it's something else to read it and not have the concept or the context of how it was discussed. So I think, you know, having this meeting one-on-one with him to kind of walk him through will probably spark him up a little bit too. That's just my thought. Instead of sending it to him to review and then send his comments, I would just walk him through it.
I think that's a great idea. I think it makes sense. And I think Pastor Tayo should do it.
Yes.
Yeah, I was going to say,
articulating
Brother
it.
Pam should do it, but it's okay.
Sorry.
No, two hands are. I mean, two good heads are better than one. So, but then the other thing is also that's the essence of recording. What I intend that we do is to transcribe this recording and then, of course, walk him through it. Yes, I know his time is very precious, just like all of us. And so walking it through conversation and, highlighting the things. And thank you for bringing that. That's the essence of, facilitating an organizational workshop. Actually, corporations take weeks and months on a boot camp, and executive leaders, they sit down. It takes a while to develop a succinct vision statement that represents your identity, your thoughts, the depth of your passion, and things that you are willing and aiming to address, that that, look, we're not just throwing blows here and there. We have a straightforward focus and a destination. And that destination, even though, yes, the word making Africa great, of course, the word making something great has been polluted. So we want to actually restore Africa's leadership and greatness in an environment of safety and where people thrive. And it's easy words to really say for everyone, even for a 7-year-old. One of my bosses, Mr. Onoso, they used to say the test of a vision statement is what a 7-year-old can say without any ambiguity or so. So it must be clear, well said, simple statements, simple words, but that connotes the identity, the passion, the depth of the futuristic goal that the vision is aiming at. All right. I think we've done well today. You have my homework crafted out for me. I just want to know if anyone knows who can transcribe the recording. That would be helpful for me, and then I will have my notes on some of the on some of the things we have discussed, and that would actually help to make things clear. So on that note, I'm going to say, unless if we all want to move ahead a few more minutes, what I have on the outline is just basically left is the mission statement and then statement of core values. And I think in one of my notes I had said each one of us should just mention what are 3 key core values or 4 core values, and then I can look at all the values and then see where how to create 5 to 7 core values that the organization may consider for its core values. Do we still want to go a few more minutes, 10, 15 minutes more?
I'm happy to keep going. But sorry, it's morning for me, but I know for some of you it's late night, so not to
think we can still, I can do 15 minutes.
Okay, all right. Since you're at the end of the night there, we're at the early part of the night. It's just 6 o'clock, a little bit after 6 here, so that's fine. And summer, actually, the sun doesn't set until 8:30 p.m. So it's still bright outside at 6:15. All right. Okay, having said that, I will skip over. Let's talk about the core values. And I would, let me give you a kind of start of some of the thoughts I had on core value statements. Just a minute, I need to capture my core value statements. of these resources. By the way, there is there was a speech made in 20. Let me see, what time was this? 2018, by the president of the Afri-Exim Bank in New York here, and is actually titled "A Path to Making Africa Great Again: Transforming Africa's Trade and Infrastructure," by Dr. Orama, who is apparently a Nigerian from Cross River State, Dr. Benedict Orama. And that's interesting that that phrase has been used, just like Sister Ivy mentioned, that it lacks originality. It's not original. There's also, like he explained there, what Brother Ibrahim brought up, that indeed Africa has some greatness, even in trade, in trading. That so he then captured it as transforming Africa's trade. So you can see how the word that we're looking at, restoring, recapturing, transforming, meaning that, look, we have greatness. So how do we transform? I also posed on the just to read and peruse. And so let's go to cover just in a minute. I'm trying to just take a loose here. Mm-hmm. I have to scroll through my. Okay. Okay. One of the things, and in the statements, like I said, our values are what are non-compromisable attributes that we believe this organization will uphold. And that's why it's referred to our core values. It says our values define what we stand for and how we will conduct ourselves under all circumstances. And that includes everyone that is associated with us must acknowledge and recognize what we stand for. So basically, those are core values. One of the, and I think this will be acceptable by all of us, one of the things that I always look at in any organization, particularly an organization for the good of the public and the society, is integrity. And so I have integrity, I have professionalism, and I'll take Brother Ibe's word, respect for diversity. So those are my three. So now who wants to take the floor next?
Can I go?
Please do.
I'll say we would like to be seen as consistent no matter the situation. You know,
Okay.
we are consistent we stand by the truth and by our beliefs. We are not swayed by the events around us.
Okay.
And I'll say we're transparent.
Okay, transparency. Okay.
Yeah, transparency, and well, whichever you think is better of the two. I think they more or less speak to the same values: objective and independent.
Okay, we're independent. Okay, I mean, both two, yeah, objective and independent. Okay, so it's still, okay, thank you so much. So we have your three. All right, next on the stand, who wants to go next? Just three main things that you strongly believe should anchor and guide our actions, our activities, and our decisions.
I would like to include equity and justice and inclusion. Because I think part of I'm thinking this in my head and it's not coming out right. Because part of our challenges in Africa is the lack of equity, right? The way we treat each other as part of our, I mean, we are looking at core values, right? You are talking about our core values, right?
Yes.
And it's promoting an environment that is equitable, fair, and just.
Okay, and just. That's very strong, equitable, fair, and just. All right. Thank you so much. So you put it in a capsule. All right. Okay, Brother IB.
So I was looking at borrowing from what you said about the demographic of the youth and technology and so on. I think one core value would be innovation.
Okay.
And I don't know how to express this, but I look at leadership in sort of a disaggregated manner. So I'm not looking only at political leadership, but leadership in its true sense, which would it would capture the role of I hate to use the word, but the role of the elite. So leadership across politics, business, culture,
Okay.
In all aspects, really. And how you can reduce that to a value, though, I don't know for sure.
It will be servant leadership. We just call it servant leadership. I think what you're expressing is that, yes, it doesn't matter which sphere of life you are, public sector, private sector, civil society, education, health, you need to be a servant leader. And I think that resonates across, environments or countries. I mean, you look at Norway, you look at Sweden, you look at their leaders. They are servant leaders. Even, one another good example I have is New Zealand. I mean, the 10 most well-led countries in the world actually have servant leaders. And if you look at it, so you're right, that will capture. So servant leadership must be a core value. It's not leadership for yourself or for your, space. It's to serve people. And, so we must be able to identify those core competencies of servanthood in everyone who is joined with this organization and anyone that we intend to, associate with. Like I said, we don't necessarily support anyone, but we associate, and that must be clear to people. We are not biased against anyone, but these, if you don't stand by these same value, we cannot associate. If you're not a recognized servant leader, somebody who has the needs of the others, just like Star Jumoke said, equity, fair, and just. Has nothing to do with color, has nothing to do with education. Equity means equal access, that each person has equal access to be a leader, not about age, not about culture, not about education or position, and it's fair. That is, there's a system or criteria that is set, so it is not using one set of criteria for some people and another for others, and then it's just. I mean, so thanks. So innovation, servant leadership. Any other? You have one more hanging.
One more would be that the leader, so this reflects on diversity, must be a consensus builder. Leadership has to have that element where it's able to converge opinion and create consensus.
Okay, that's very strong. Consensus builder, yeah. So which is more like teamwork, we must also teamwork or collaboration. Some organizations will express that, yes, we can, you must build, and then the word partnership also could be a value, that is, we can't do it alone. We have to partner with others. We have to build consensus and things. So thank you so much. Okay, who is next on the platform? Sister IB, who hasn't gone now? I have gone, Sister Jumi, Brother IB, Sister Funke. I think Sister IB, you'll be the.
Yeah, I think it's me. I think for me, it will have to be freedom,
Okay.
tolerance, patriotism.
Okay, so, freedom, tolerance, and patriotism.
I think the average African man is still under some sort of psychological slavery, and we don't exhibit total freedom from the white man. Yeah, and also the tolerance speaks about what Brother Ibrahim mentioned earlier about the diversity amongst us. So in terms of our ethnicity, religious affiliations and stuff like that, we must be able to tolerate one another. And then the patriotism, if you imagine how patriotic the Americans are, we are lacking so far behind, and I don't know. I think that's so important because it will help us in many other areas if we can embrace our own and be patriotic about Africa. I think that will help.
Thank you so much. I think we've all come out, like I said, I'll make the list, but one element that I see that not necessarily missing, but could be added because of what we identified as the essence of this organization is accountability. So which means as an organization, we are accountable to the people we are serving. We're accountable, meaning, hey, there's no, and I think Sister Jumoke mentioned transparency, well, or whether it's Sister Funke, but then that we are transparent, but we're also accountable. There's nothing you can ask ALG that we would not make known to you. So there's no reserved, preserved information or issues that cannot be made known if it is asked. Again, we're non-profit, non-partisan, non-governmental, citizen-driven. So any citizen can ask a question or can ask information about ALG or what ALG has done or is doing or how it spends money, and it will be made known without any question. So that, again, I think. So I'll pull this together. Again, all we're doing is providing, a workable document from which, and I'll try to, as best as possible, define each of these statements so that it is clear. All right. Another one I think we did mention, I think which is already there. I mean, we've talked about awareness and sensitivity, but which is matched. And then freedom is very strong. I think it's very strong. I know people will question that and say, are we not free? But you're right. I think as a core value, it means everybody is free to express. We have freedom of speech, freedom of talent, freedom of, participation. So nobody's excluded, So there's no exclusivity about, what concerns a nation. So, all right, I think we've done very well. I mean, that's how we capture core statements. I'll just then put statements to it and then we'll present it. Well, on this note, I think our time is well spent. Thank you all so much. I hand over to Brother Ibrahim. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Pastor Tai. This has been very enriching, and I think going into our third hour, it has been time very well spent. Honestly, I can't thank you enough for the depth of your knowledge and just the your ability to capture all of this in such well expressed terms. I have felt very well guided, and I think it's a privilege for me. Thank you very much, sir.
No, you're most welcome. It's a pleasure.
Thank you, Pastor Tara.
Thank you, sir. That was really good.
I should thank you all for making the work easy for me.
So what is our assignment? Do we have any assignments?
The next thing we'll do is, like I said, we'll need help to see it transcribed, what we have, so that I can edit that. Basically, I outlined the next thing we have to discuss is the guiding principles. And they are usually expressed in "we believe." What do we, just expressing our belief. And that's one of Pastor Itua's favorite, word. He used to do a caption on, I believe, or believe, I think so. But guiding principles are just what we believe. And I'll post some thoughts and ideas so that we can all come out with at least 3 statements of strong beliefs that we have that will guide our decisions. And then I think also next working session, we should give more time to governance structure, roles and responsibilities. And that comes in the document so that we can look at the structural, pillars of the organization in terms of hierarchies. We have the board, we have executive management, then we have each country, associate. And then, of course, you have RBI, International Associates. We have regional associates. NLS will be a regional associate. Then when Ghana is created, so we'll discuss that as best. And then we have partners. So we would have partners, both public, private, civil society partners, associations, and all whatnot. And then, of course, we have philanthropic organizations, donors. So we need to just look at the whole chart. So those will be the 3, and then lastly, strategic focus areas. So I hope our next session we're able to capture guiding principles, governance structure, and then strategic focus areas. And then that will lead us to defining our objectives and things like that. So the assignment is just to prepare. Go ahead.
No, sorry.
No.
Please go ahead.
No, I was just going to say that I think Zoom offers automatic transcription.
Oh, it does? I didn't know that.
I think so. I think you can get the...
I think Auntie Bijoke just volunteered to transcribe.
Oh.
Did everyone hear that?
Yeah.
I think I heard it in the spirit.
Yes. I heard.
Oh,
it's just that I don't own this subscription, this Zoom.
Don't
license.
Worry, they can send the recording to you. I'll help Uncle Ibrahim send it. We'll Zoom it to you.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Let's see what we can do.
We would appreciate. We'll pray for you, and I want to do it. I will improve on it. Yes. Yes.
You can do all things.
True Christ who strengthens you.
Yes. Thank you all.
That's enough.
Thank you so much.
All right.
So when do we meet next?
Huh?
In 2 weeks.
When do we meet next? Yeah.
Well, yeah, I was going to ask Pastor Tayo if he has any guide on that, depending on how fast the work goes.
Well, once I get the transcript of today's meeting, I'll prepare a response document so that we close those areas that we've discussed: the vision, the mission, the context, and everything, and the core value statements. I think I'm open. I mean, if it's in a week's time, once I get the transcription in the next days, we can actually, Friday is also, an open, I think if it works for all of us, we can just keep that, and you know, and so that's what I would suggest. So we keep the momentum so that we can move forward. But once we edit this script, we will seek an appointment with pastor so that we don't load him with all at once. So we go through this with him, get a feedback, but we keep working, you know. So that's that would be my, you know, suggestion.
Okay. I mean,
Sounds great.
yeah, perfect. I don't know.
Very nice.
Maybe I'll speak with Sister Bijoke about the transcriptions. I know Sister Shade just did a 30-page transcription of Pastor. It was Port Harcourt event, I think. So she might have some ideas about how to do it.
Yep, that'd be good.
Okay, so I can reach out to her.
Okay, that's the one the leadership Nigeria needs or something.
Yeah, really nice.
You took Port Harcourt by storm.
Yeah.
That was fantastic. It
It was.
was really good.
It was good, yeah.
Yeah.
So I'll reach out to her and see if any ideas around that. Otherwise, thank you, Sister, for volunteering.
No problem.
To do it.
Thank
So,
you.
but if it's okay as well, I would share the recording with all of us, put it on the chat, so you have, at least we all have the recording with us. Pray for me that I don't mess it up. I think
You
all
won't.
I need to do is
You will
Yeah,
not.
you will not. Yes.
You will be safely delivered to the platform.
I appropriate your faith. But thank you very much, sir. It's been
Thank you.
very enlightening, and thank you, ladies, sisters. Hopefully look forward to reconvening after we have the transcript and we get a green light from Pastor Tara.
All right. Thank you
All
so
right.
much,
Have a
everyone.
good
Thank you
evening.
so
Have a
much, everyone.
Good
wonderful
night.
weekend.
Sleep well.
Thank
Take
you.
care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Bye.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Okay. Bye.
Stop the recording as soon as I have. Pray that I'm able to do this.